God who exists outside of time, God of history, present, and the future. We gather now to remember our past, to be present and be challenged in this moment as we seek hope for the future. We enter this place and pray that the movement of your Spirit would open our minds and set our hearts on fire, empowering us to live our lives with grace and joy. Amen. This morning I want us to consider things that explode with light. Meteor showers, bioluminescence, bombs bursting in air. We are in the midst right now of the Perseid meteor showers. How many of you have gone outside and looked up at night? Okay, I'm going to nerd out on the cosmos for just a moment because this is the best viewing of the Perseid meteor shower that comes every August. It is a annual summer light of the sky phenomenon. So what you need to do is get somewhere dark and let your eyes adjust at least 20 minutes, and these will be going all over the sky. If you let your eyes adjust to the darkness, the more and more you will be able to see. Just get a place away from light pollution and look up. This Wednesday is when it peaks, and it's a new moon on Wednesday, so it's particularly dark. So all you need to do is go outside and be still and look up. Kids at camp, you'll be in your cabins at night. But if your counselors let you look outside after dark, I hope that you will look up and see these meteors shooting through the sky. Beyond that, there's a total solar eclipse that's happening in much of the world on Wednesday. Later this month, a lunar eclipse. So all manner of things are happening if only we look up. When I look at the night sky and see the works of God's fingers, the moon and the stars that God set in place, what are humans that you are mindful of us, mortals that you care for us? What all, beloved, can darkness reveal to us? There's a marine biologist and oceanographer named Edie Witter, and she has dedicated her life to studying what lurks in the darkest depths of the ocean. And she found, to her surprise, it was light. She was stunned at how much bioluminescence she saw and realized that this must, in fact, be one of the dominant processes in the deep ocean. And yet very, very few people were looking at this. There's an interesting new documentary called A Life Illuminated that chronicles her near 40-year career. And this woman plunges thousands of feet below the ocean aboard these submersible vehicles, all in an effort to understand the phenomenon of bioluminescence. And every dive is a calculated risk to go down that deep. And she's driven forward by her curiosity about what life is like in the biggest living place on Earth, the most unexplored region of the planet. Most of us are familiar with bioluminescence in fireflies, right? Yeah, we've seen this. But there's a lot of animals on the planet that make this light, and most of them live in the ocean. And they do it mixing chemicals together in their bodies, kind of like when you break a light stick and it starts to glow, it makes light. That's essentially what a bioluminescent creature will do. Years ago, the university where Edie Witter was working got a grant for this new spectrometer, which lets you measure light. And they sent her to the deepest part of the ocean, said, take this gadget, see what you can find. And the first time she went down to about 800 feet, she was looking around and she said it was barren. It was desolate, there was no life. And then she turned out the lights that she had brought with her. And she said it was breathtaking. It was as though she was in the middle of a fireworks display. Flashes and glows and swirls of light, all these different shades of blue. She said she was blown away because she knew how much energy it took for a creature to make light. And had she left her lights on that she brought with her down there in the ocean, she would have said, what a sad and desolate place. But when she let herself become acclimated to the place and let its own illumination show, it was an entirely different world. In his bestseller, Pale Blue Dot, Carl Sagan said, in some respects, science has far surpassed religion in delivering awe. How is it that hardly any major religion has looked at science and concluded, this is better than we thought? The universe is bigger than our prophets said, grander, more subtle, and more elegant. But too often we say, no. Our God is small and want God to stay that way. Sagan says that religion, old or new, that stresses the magnificence of the universe as revealed by modern science might be able to draw forth reserves of reverence and awe hardly tapped by conventional faith. Beloved, we can tap into this at any moment. The astonishing scale of the cosmos evokes awe and reverence, as does the exquisite intricacy of a living cell, the marvels of the periodic table, mind-bending mysteries of the subatomic world, the symbiosis amongst our fellow creatures, and even that within our own bodies. We are called to bear witness to this wonder, but sometimes we have to give ourselves some time to adjust, to be able to perceive it. The word science comes from an old word for knowledge, and one of the highest purposes of knowledge is to deliver awe. And so to build up the mindful, heartful reverence that we require in order to continue to live brilliant lives of humility and courage. Deuteronomy teaches, today I offer you two different ways, the way of life and the way of death, the way of blessing and the way of curse. I mean, I'm looking at each of you saying, okay, Pastor, is that even a choice? Who's saying, please, sign me up for death and a curse? Right? We would not, on the face of it, make that choice. And yet, we so often reach for devastation. Darkness reveals sometimes aspects of our being, individually or collectively, that we might not want to see. At 8:15 a.m., the 6th of August, 1945, Hiroshima became the first city in the world to suffer a nuclear attack. 11:02 a.m. on the 9th of August, Nagasaki became the second and hopefully last ever to be hit by an atomic bomb. These bombs killed at least 120,000 people outright and around twice as many over time. The survivors of the bombings are called hibakusha, a word that translates literally to bomb-affected people. Cancer and other generationally lingering effects of the radiation continue to plague the people from there. Joseph Noriaki Aida is a retired bishop of the Diocese of Kyushu, Japan, and he was a 16-year-old student at a naval academy 10 miles south of Hiroshima the day the Enola Gay dropped the bomb. He said, I went into the city and I saw total devastation. Standing atop one of the city's surrounding hills, he could see complete destruction on one side and a land full of green on the other. Today, I lay down two ways, the way of life and the way of death, the way of blessing and the way of curse. He said that he felt he understood that they had chosen the way of death earlier when they had declared war. And it makes us as a nation consider what our current choices are and where they may lead us. We take the same materials and often choose to use them for vastly different ends. The Chinese invented fireworks for beauty and delight. The same materials moved west and became gunpowder. Fritz Haber, a Nobel laureate in chemistry, friend of Einstein, a German Jew and World War I hero, around 1900 was a young chemist in Germany, intent on solving the biggest problem facing his country and the world, how to feed a growing population. At that time, everyone was worried that we had maxed out how much food the earth could produce, but he was intent on finding a way out of this. We started experimenting, and pretty soon, he had one of the most significant breakthroughs in history. He figured out how to pull nitrogen out of the atmosphere to make bread from the air and feed the world with fertilizers. His discovery earned him a Nobel Prize. And about the same time, the US officials were calling him a war criminal because the Haber-Bosch process, which he invented at the turn of the 20th century, revolutionized agriculture by converting nitrogen to fertilizer in quantities massive enough to feed the world, but it also became an invention that was what supplied the German military with explosives during World War I. Haber orchestrated Germany's use of an entirely new weapon, nerve gas. So his invention led to fertilizer which fed us Zyklon B, the gas later used to kill millions, including his own relatives, in concentration camps. He's the patron saint of weapons and bread. We remember that war and hunger are always intimately connected. And we have this choice, life or death, fireworks, gunpowder, fertilizer, nerve gas, nuclear capacity to have clean energy or to have generational devastation. I set before you this day a choice. What kind of life do we choose? Not in some abstract future version of you, but the today you. Because in the future, we're all going to choose life, right? And blessing, I'm going to say for the most part. But in any given day, any given moment, are you going to get up or are you going to let things pass? Each day we have a choice about who and what we serve, what we feed. Dwight Eisenhower famously said in 1953, every gun that's made, every warship launched, every rocket fired signifies in a final sense a theft from those who hunger and are not fed, those who are cold and are not clothed. Today, with our choices, do we seek bread or bombast? What is illuminated in the dark places that we find? Japan is the only country in the world to have suffered nuclear attack, and they have vowed to never develop nuclear weapons, because healing makes you not want to hurt somebody else. Frederick Buechner has said, I'm inclined to believe that God's chief purpose in giving us memory is to enable us to go back in time so that if we didn't play those roles right the first time around, we can still have another go at it now. We cannot undo our old mistakes or their consequences any more than we can erase old wounds that we have suffered or inflicted. But through the power that memory gives us of thinking and feeling and imagining our way back through time, we can perhaps finish with the past in the sense of removing its power to hurt us and other people. It can inform the future. In the passage we heard this morning, it comes at the end of the 40-year journey. The Israelites have been wandering around in the desert wilderness for generations, and before they crossed into the promised land, they received this teaching on how to live going forward. You would think they would have had 40 years to get it, right? But, sometimes we all need to hear things. And what they were told was, I'm commanding you today something that is not too difficult for you. This is not beyond your reach. It's not so far in heaven that you have to say, who's going to go up there and proclaim it? Nor is it beneath the sea, so you have to say, who will cross the sea to proclaim it so we may obey it? No, this is very near you. It's in your heart and it's in your mouth. Today I give you the choice of life and prosperity or death and destruction. Follow God's commands, and you will be blessed into the place that you are entering. What kind of choices are we making in this moment? We heard in our announcements that tomorrow's a holiday in Rhode Island. Rhode Island is the only state that commemorates Victory Day. I am all for remembrance, but perhaps we are well overdue to rename this day. Beloved. Not in the sense that we abandon the service or the memory of veterans. Please don't forget that, but remember in a way that actually promotes healing, in a way that would be transformative. At present, this current treatment of the day continues to carry profound anti-Japanese connotations that only perpetuate the wounds of that war. The state of Rhode Island was deeply involved in World War II. Thousands died in the Pacific and in Europe, and some of those veterans and their families are still living and want to remember these sacrifices. But, beloved, this happened in 1945, and since then Japan has become a solid ally of this nation. Next week, the Black Ships Festival will sail into Bristol. During the war, American citizens of Japanese ancestry were forced into internment camps, even while Japanese Americans fought valiantly for this country. As a part of military intelligence in the Pacific, the 442nd Regiment combat team helped liberate Italy and Germany and France, and they received more than 5,000 Purple Hearts and 21 Medals of Honor, the most highly decorated unit for its size in the history of the U.S. military. What are we still doing here tomorrow? Efforts have been made over the years to change this name, and it continues to be met with resistance. Recently, the General Assembly considered changing the name to Peace and Remembrance Day. As in years past, it didn't get very far. I set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Choose life so that you and your children may live. If we think this is just words and it doesn't matter, think again. God gives us the freedom to choose. And the hard thing about this, and also the easy thing about this, is it's not some one big epic choice that you make once and you check it off your list. It comes every day in these small choices. They build up over time in the day-to-day. They may not seem so much like you're choosing life or choosing death, but you may just be choosing the couch instead of choosing get up. Choosing not picking up the phone. Choosing not making that contact. These are the small ways that lead to life or lead to death. That day, for instance, when it's going to be yours to choose between staying in a circumstance or a relationship or a job that isn't about life but is about death. When you venture out not knowing what this new life will hold, but knowing that the old one surely was not right. The day when you need to dig deeply to find the courage to speak the truth, even without knowing the consequences for you, and knowing perhaps they may be less than desirable. The day when you sit at the bedside of a dear one and know that it rests with you to decide what life will look like for them and for you both, whether or not you trust the promised life yet to come. The day when you're called to choose between the comforts of what you know and of what is yet unknowable. What will you do with the resources you've been given? Bread or bombs, life or death? Will you peer into the depths of your own light source and see nothing, or will you let the darkness reveal another kind of brilliance? Choosing life doesn't just happen at one moment. It happens each time someone with a key uses it to open a door that might have otherwise remained shut. Although many of us use different words to describe it, most of us know what's killing us. Few of us choose our circumstances, but we can choose how we respond to them. Hiroshima and Nagasaki commemorate the bombings every year, and they have established extensive programs to ensure that information about the bombings is passed on, and to at the same time work for nuclear disarmament and world peace. In the wake of devastation, they choose life again and again, and they teach it to their children so that they may live. At the Nagasaki Citizens Peace Center, they established a charter back in 1989, and they said in that, in part, we will strive to create and maintain a bright social environment characterized by thoughtfulness, respect for human rights, and freedom from discrimination. We want to enhance peace education and to inform our children on whose shoulders the future lies about the horrors of war, so that no one else will experience this again. The filmmaker who was making the documentary about the deep-sea diver had the opportunity to go down with Edie Widder to the depths, and she said it was transformative for her. The filmmaker said she had always dreamed and been fascinated about the astronaut stories of the overview effect, when they go out in space and see the entirety of our tiny blue planet in the middle of the universe. But she said deep in the center of our planet, she experienced the inverse effect of this interview effect of our oceans, where instead of feeling like our planet is so small, she felt the vastness of how much more wondrous discoveries there are to be found, and how much more there is to find that we don't even know how to look for yet. Reacclimate your eyes so that we can perceive other kinds of illumination. Darkness reveals untold illuminations, and our world is full of explosions of light, meteor showers, bioluminescence, the human heart itself. So in the words of poet Judith Hill, wage peace with your breath. Breathe in terror, breathe out freshly mown fields. Wage peace. Never has the world seemed so fresh and precious. So have a cup of tea and rejoice. Act as if our armistice has already arrived. This day, choose life and live. Amen.